Welcome to A Century of Cinema. Today I will be exploring my favourite films of 1948. First up is The Sign of the Ram, directed by John Sturges and based on Margaret Ferguson's novel. Susan Peters stars as Leah, the stepmother of the three children of Mallory St. Aubyn, two of whom she saved from drowning when they were young, which saw Leah confined to a wheelchair. The story concerns Leah's manipulation of the household, attempting to thwart the marriages of the two older children, and mercilessly using the youngest daughter Christine's worship of her for her own ends. Her motivation is to keep the family together at any cost. The Sign of the Ram is included here for one reason: the performance of Susan Peters. A few short years after her impressive breakout role in Random Harvest, Peters was injured and, like Leah, confined to a wheelchair. This marks both her return to the screen and her final film appearance. Yet she would still do some TV and theatre before her death in 1952. Instead of choosing a more heroic or sympathetic wheelchair-bound character to mark her return, which she was offered numerous times, Peters chose the manipulative, duplicitous, passive-aggressive Leah, who uses her condition to get what she wants. She definitely excels at portraying the darker aspects of Leah. However, her natural charm and beauty almost make you root for her. Susan Peters in the Sign of the Ram most definitely lives up to the promise of her luminous, star-making turn in Random Harvest, and the fact that two tragedies deprive the world of more of her excellent work is a tragedy in and of itself. Susan Peters is my choice for Best Actress of 1948. The Time of Your Life is an adaptation of William Saroyan's play of the same name, about the denizens of Nick's Pacific Street saloon. James Cagney stars as Joe, a barfly, who has clearly walked away from a successful career in something or other, and now spends his time at the bar, taking an interest in the people he meets. He is assisted by his simple friend / lackey, Tom, whom Joe constantly asks to bring him random things. William Bendix plays Nick, the always perplexed proprietor and bartender. Several other characters populate the bar, including a dancing wannabe comedian, a piano player who came in for a job in the kitchen, a young man desperately trying to call his girl, a cowboy who likes to tell tall stories as much as he likes a beer, and Willie, who's obsessed with Nick's pinball machine, here played by Richard Erdman, who some may know from his scene-stealing appearances as Leonard in the sitcom Community. I had to mention that because I love that show. The relative peace of Nick's is somewhat disrupted by the arrival of Kitty Duval, played by Jean Cagney. Yeah, it's his sister. She rubs Nick the wrong way at first, but Joe is naturally fascinated by her, and Tom straight up falls in love with her. She is edgy and defensive, but it's pretty clear that she's been through some shit, which becomes clearer when an obvious gangster comes looking for her. The Time of Your Life is such a simple, good-natured, fun little movie, which within a minute, even if you didn't know it was based on a play, you'd know it was based on a play. It just feels like a play. There are no particularly cinematic reasons why I included it. I just really like it. I like the characters, I like the dialogue, and every single actor plays their part to a T. Particularly James Cagney, who seems to relish playing this talky, quirky drunk. And he's certainly my favourite Cagney character. The Time of Your Life has become kind of a cinematic comfort food for me. It had to be here. As did Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. Based on a Patrick Hamilton play and adapted by Arthur Laurents and well-known actor Hume Cronyn, it stars John Dowell and Farley Granger as Brandon and Philip, two wealthy and educated young men who strangle their former classmate David, dump him in a chest, and proceed to have a dinner party with David's friends and family in the same room as his corpse. In attendance are David's father, Cedric Hardwick, his girlfriend Janet, Joan Chandler, his aunt, Janet's ex, Brandon and Philip's housekeeper, and last to arrive, their former schoolmaster Rupert, played by James Stewart. Brandon has convinced Philip to kill David as a way to prove their superiority. This idea was seeded by Rupert when the boys were in college. Brandon idolized Rupert and wanted to practice what Rupert preached. Brandon is very much the dominant partner in the murder and cheerily navigates the dinner party with ease. His only tell, a slight stutter. Philip, however, is a nervous wreck, certain that they will be found out at any moment. This is exacerbated by Brandon's goading and Rupert's prying. It is only Rupert who suspects anything at all. Rope was not very well received in its time. Even Hitchcock and Stewart have dismissed it as a failure. Yet as time has gone by, it has become one of Hitchcock's highest regarded films, and definitely one of my favourites. The most obvious and lauded aspect of Rope is the use of real time and long takes. In fact, most of the film appears as one shot, with real changes taking place in the moments between zooming in and out of a character's back. However, while that is a curiosity, and certainly a technical achievement, it is the way it is done that makes Rope special. This is another film which is very obviously based on a play, but the staging and cinematography elevate the work, as does the cast. Particularly John Dowell as Brandon, whose perverse elation is quite delicious, and James Stewart as Rupert, whose excellent delivery and manner provide quite a bit of levity, and whose expressions provide a good deal of the suspense. And the script is so densely packed with wit, depravity, and verbal sparring that it can feel like an action movie at times. Add to this the master of suspense experimenting with his technique, and you get a damn fine piece of cinema. So Rope is my choice for Best Screenplay for Hume Cronin and Arthur Lawrence, and once again, Best Director for Alfred Hitchcock. Finally, Portrait of Jennie. Joseph Cotten stars a struggling artist, Eben Adams, who meets a young girl named Jennie, played by Jennifer Jones. She is an unusual girl and is dressed in old-style clothes, but she is something of an inspiration to Eben, and he begins to draw sketches of her, which are lauded by art dealers Spinney and Matthews, Ethel Barrymore, and Cecil Calloway. When he sees Jennie again, she is older than she should be, and speaks of things which occurred years earlier as if they were new. This happens several times. Each time Jennie has aged a few years in a matter of weeks, and she and Eben begin to fall in love. Jennie poses for a portrait, and it is clearly Eben's best work. But Jennie's disappearance and mysterious nature send Eben on a quest to find out more about her, and he learns from a nun at the convent where she grew up that Jennie died in a boat accident years earlier. Eben then resolves to return to where she died in the hopes that he can change what happened. Portrait of Jennie is 100% pure, undiluted romantic fantasy in the best possible way. Jennifer Jones is perfectly and appropriately radiant as Jennie, and Joseph Cotten carries the film as Eben. If you don't believe and root for him, the whole thing falls apart. And I, for one, did both in spades. Actually, the entire cast is excellent. Of particular note are Ethel Barrymore as Spinney, who supports and quietly loves Eben, and David Wayne as Gus, Eben's best friend, who is quite the ray of sunshine in the movie, yet carries just the right dose of melancholy with him. On top of that is Joseph H. August's Oscar-nominated cinematography, which is at times impossibly atmospheric, and adds an extra layer of mystery and an ethereal quality to Jennie. In fact, stylistically, the whole film is beautiful. Between scenes, the film is given a canvas effect, and at one point, as lightning penetrates the screen, the film is tinted green for the duration of the storm, and after switches to sepia tone until the gorgeous full-colour final shot. Even with a somewhat talky script by several writers, based on Robert Nathan's book, which matches the visual tone of the film with its lyrical beauty. It does feel at times like a silent film. It's just a mood that seems to be captured, difficult to quantify. That ineffable quality is part of why I love Portrait of Jennie so much. It is one of my all-time favourite movies. And for 1948, it receives my accolades for Best Actor, Joseph Cotten, and Best Picture, or should I say Best Portrait. Join me next time on A Century of Cinema when I will be discussing my favourite films of 1949. Now go watch a movie.